So there were a bunch of kids walking by, and one of them started swearing at my young child because of the political sign that we had out. It's just like, where have we gone?
We can all see that we've reached sort of the upper limits of what an us versus them adversarial political culture will do for us. It's not a normal conflict. It's not something that operates according to normal rules of behavior. It's the kind of conflict where we feel increasingly certain of our own righteousness and moral superiority and increasingly baffled by the other side and threatened.
Why I'm involved in this work really is to strengthen communities and the idea of building these sorts of skills into communities to be more resilient, to be more empathetic, to understand how diverse we are and all of those things. And it just makes me think, like, what would it be like if, just like maybe a trauma-informed community, we were a conflict-informed community?
I got obsessed with the question of what is conflict and how does it work and how can we do better about 6 years ago, when I started realizing that even though I had covered a lot of conflict for 20 years as a journalist, I used to cover terrorism and disasters and crime and all kinds of, human misery. I felt like I no longer understood the conflict, and it just wasn't behaving like according to the laws of physics, and it felt like anything I might do was either going to have no effect or make things worse. So that's when I started following around people who have either themselves shifted out of really dysfunctional, intractable conflict into a healthier kind of conflict, whether they are former gang leaders or politicians or activists or guerrilla members in Colombia, learning from them how they did that and what other people did to help them, right? And what the rest of us could learn from them was incredibly hopeful and helpful.
When do we collectively, or how do we collectively hit a saturation point? Or is it just going to be individuals just kind of like pinging and realizing this isn't good for me anymore?
Building community, building relationships, especially across divides, right, is a way to prepare for a saturation point. Somebody asked in the chat, like, can you expand on what a saturation point is? What does it look like in high conflict? So for some of the people I followed, it looks like sort of like hitting bottom for an addict. It's sort of a moment where something happens. Maybe it's out of your control, like a snowstorm or a shooting or sickness or an act of violence. But something happens to create a temporary pause in the conflict dynamics, just because it's shocking or it destabilizes the system. And in that moment where the plates are kind of spinning in the air, there is enough space, just for a second, not very long, unfortunately, to kind of question the whole conflict. Like, I think we could just drop the mic.